In 1940, British author and adventurer Peter Fleming published The Flying Visit, a humorous speculative novel that placed Nazi Fuhrer Adolf Hitler in a precarious situation. Hitler, alone, on a solo mission into the heart of enemy territory, parachuted into Great Britain seeking a peace agreement with the country. The only catch was that Hitler did not speak English. He had no money, and the British, not knowing how to handle the situation, eventually sent him packing back to Germany. Little did Fleming, Scottish plowman David McLean, and the rest of the world know this 1940s novel would become a bit of a premonition for an event that would occur only months later in May of 1941, only replace the Fuhrer himself with one of his closest confidants, Rudolf Hess. Hess, prior to his daring 1941 flight to Scotland, had served faithfully alongside Adolf Hitler for over 2 decades. Their relationship was first born out of their military service in the First World War, slowly culminating into the Nazi Party's political movement that overthrew the democratic Weimar Republic in exchange for fascism and eventually coerced the rest of the world, many still repulsed at the idea, still living with the nightmares of horrific trench warfare, into the Second World War. Hess was there through it all, the November 1923 Bierhalsputsch, and after initially escaping prosecution, voluntarily turning himself in to serve a prison sentence alongside Adolf Hitler at Landsberg prison. Here he served a crucial role as Hitler's scribe and editor of Mein Kampf. After their release, he then helped Hitler overthrow the Nazi leftist Gregor Strasser, who had become a prominent party figure in Hitler's absence. With Strasser permanently removed, Hess helped Hitler centralize the party, segregate the country through propaganda and race laws, and drive home the idea of Lebensraum, or living space, a core belief of Nazi ideology and justification for rapid German expansionism. And for his dedication and loyalty, he was rewarded tenfold. By the time of Hess's 1941 solo flight, he had risen to the ranks that most Nazi loyalists could only dream of, being regarded as one of the most recognizable figures of the Nazi movement. Starting in April of 1933, Hess was named Nazi Deputy Fuhrer, with cabinet membership earned by December the same year. Later, in 1939, he was named second in the Nazi line of succession, only behind Hermann Göring. So why in 1941, just weeks before Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union, did Rudolf Hess, prominent Nazi figure and one of Hitler's closest confidants, decide to risk it all? The world has beckoned for the truth ever since. Some indications may lie in the opinions of other top Nazi officials held of Hess, and the perception that Hess had fallen from the good graces of Adolf Hitler, the man with whom he had built his legacy beside. Despite Hess being worthy enough to be named second in line of succession, the later end of the 1930s and the earliest years of World War II had created a wedge between the Nazi Party and Rudolf Hess. A preoccupied Hitler, in a power struggle at the top, saw Hess's power slowly diminish, as Martin Bormann and other fellow top Nazis began to oust Hess from the party's prominence. Hess, with unfledged loyalty to Adolf Hitler, devised a plan to once again land in his good graces that involved a secret meeting with Scotland's Duke of Hamilton, arranged by Hess's close mutual friend and advisor, Albrecht Haushofer. The intent of the meeting was to strike a peace deal with the Duke of Hamilton and the King of England behind Winston Churchill's back in an effort to close out one front to focus on a second front in Operation Barbarossa, return home, and present his accomplishment to Adolf Hitler. The only problem, unlike Fleming's 1940 novel, The Flying Visit, it was easier said than done. On May 10th, 1941, around 6 p.m., Rudolf Hess boarded a Messerschmitt 110 and departed an airport near Munich for Dungavel House in Scotland, home of the Duke of Hamilton. Against all odds, he challenged a dark, foggy night, venturing unfamiliar territory, traversing the Rhine, and across the North Sea, proving his piloting skills by navigating with only charts and maps while completely avoiding being shot down by British air defenses. Despite his incredible ability, he wouldn't go completely unnoticed, and as fate would have it, around 10:30 p.m., Hess was forced to perform an emergency evacuation when he ran out of fuel 12 miles short of his intended destination. Hess landed just south of Glasgow and was first met by Scottish ploughman Dave McLean, to whom he identified himself as German Luftwaffe pilot Captain Alfred Horn. Showing hospitality, McLean helped Hess to his cottage, where he shared tea with McLean's mother until an assembled home guard arrived in response to the crash. Thereafter, Hess was transported to Girl Guide's hut at Busby, where he received medical treatment for a broken ankle suffered during his landing, and revealed his true identity to the world as none other than the infamous Rudolf Hess. True to the reality in Fleming's parallel world, local authorities struggled to grasp how exactly to handle a situation of this volume, with the local Scotsman newspaper exemplifying the situation perfectly and saying, "The arrival of a man from Mars would cause scarcely more astonishment." On Sunday, May 11th, 1941, Rudolf Hess finally received his long-sought-after conversation with the Duke of Hamilton, and to his dismay, it was a conversation that only turned the knife deeper into his eventual fate. The Duke of Hamilton, serving as the commander of a Royal Air Force base, declared his full commitment to his country and to the defeat of Nazi Germany, while Hess exposed himself as a solo act. Hess's actions expunged the possibility of any diplomatic protection he believed he was entitled to, instead guaranteeing his imprisonment soon after. On the evening of Monday, May 12, 1941, the Reich Minister for Popular Enlightenment and Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, first learned of Rudolf Hess's disappearance. Goebbels quoted that when he visited Adolf Hitler to discuss the matter, that he found Hitler crushed and in tears. An initial announcement was made to the public the same day, at Hitler's discretion, by Press Secretary Otto Dietrich, rather than done usually by Goebbels' ministry, stating that Hess had not returned home from a flight after suffering a nervous breakdown. The following day, May 13, 1941, after learning that Hess was in Britain, all attitudes changed. Hess was condemned by Hitler, and a second public announcement was delivered declaring that Hess had undertaken a purely personal initiative to seek an understanding between England and Germany, resulting from a mental aberration influenced by a host of magnetotherapists and astrologists. While Hess's actions stirred such a frenzy in Nazi Germany that ideologies had to be publicly reaffirmed of the commitment to undeterred destruction of the British Empire, in England, Hess became the subject to endless interrogations and psychological analysis in the months following his arrival. Ultimately, interrogators found what Hess had to say was of little value for his clear signs of mental instability. One of his interviewers, Lord Simon, explained that Hess was constantly in fear that he was the victim of an assassination plot, that his food was being poisoned, and he was purposely being deprived of sleep. Furthermore, by June 1941, it was made clear to the British that Hess was and did not see himself as a refugee of any sorts, but a hardened Nazi loyalist on a mission to please Adolf Hitler. Countlessly, he insisted that he was more or less doing the British a favor by trying to negotiate peace and preventing havoc being wreaked on Rotterdam or Warsaw, because the British were a spent force and its end of time would come eventually. On June 16, 1941, mentally shattered Hess attempted taking his own life by hurling himself down a set of stairs, officially earning himself the medical diagnosis of paranoia, systematic delusional insanity, and strict supervision for the remainder of his wartime imprisonment. Following the defeat of Nazi Germany by the Allied forces in 1945, Rudolf Hess joined his fellow Nazi conspirators as a defendant at the Nuremberg trials. Unlike a number of his former companions, Hess was not sentenced to be hanged to death. Instead, to serve a life sentence in prison. For over the next 46 years, Hess is known simply as Prisoner Number 7 of Spandau Prison in West Berlin, Germany. The last 20 years spent as its sole incarcerated occupant, and earned an experience of leisure, able to travel freely within the prison's grounds. In August 1987, as if a fate once escaped at Nuremberg ran full circle, 93-year-old Rudolf Hess was found hanging from a lamp cord in the prison's garden building. The nature of Hess's unusual death, the outcry from his son of foul play, and the fact that British intelligence files containing transcripts of alleged correspondence between Rudolf Hess and King George VI exist under lock and key until 2041, 100 years after Hess's original arrest, have birthed a plethora of conspiracy theories ever since, questioning whether or not Hess truly acted alone or was influenced in some way. Out of a long list of theories, 3 theories persistently exist. The first being what is publicly believed. Hess, distraught, mentally ill, sought to regain the good graces of Adolf Hitler in a near impossible solo mission unbeknownst to the Fuhrer himself. This theory was reaffirmed and expanded upon by Nazi Minister of Armaments and War Production and close friend of Adolf Hitler, Albert Speer. In his memoir, Inside the Third Reich, Speer recalls waiting outside the office after Hitler had learned about the news of Hess. He quotes his initial reaction as an articulate, almost animal outcry of rage. What bothered him the most was that Churchill might use this incident to pretend to Germany's allies that Hitler was extending a peace feeler. Hitler is quoted as rhetorically asking, "Who will believe me when I say that Hess did not fly there under my name, that the whole thing is not some sort of intrigue behind the backs of my allies? Japan might even alter her policy because of this." 25 years later, when Speer and Hess were imprisoned together at Spandau, he asked Hess directly why he took the flight to Scotland. Hess assured me, in all seriousness, that the idea had been inspired in a dream by supernatural forces. We will guarantee England her empire. In return, she will give us a free hand in Europe. Albert Speer's recollection of events clearly aligns with public perception, but still, other theories suggest that Adolf Hitler and Rudolf Hess shared a secret plot with an alternate ending in case things went sour. The second theory claims that Adolf Hitler was well aware of Rudolf Hess's planned flight to the extent that he shared a hand in strategizing it. In the event of failure, an understanding of disavowalment was agreed upon. In 2011, Matthias Uhl of the German Historical Institute of Moscow discovered some insightful information about Hess's assistant, Karl-Heinz Pintz, that brings this theory even closer to reality. Uhl's evidence is a testimony from Pintz on the morning of Hess's flight. In it, Pintz describes that he delivered an explanatory letter to Hitler from Hess the morning of his flight. He further explains that Hitler received the letter calmly because the flight occurred by prior arrangement with the English, and that Hess was tasked to use all means at his disposal to achieve, if not a German military alliance with England against Russia, at least the neutralization of England. The only caveat to Pinch's claims is that his official statement comes from a period during the Cold War when he was a known prisoner of the Soviet Union, and his testimony, well, it strangely aligns with the same belief of Joseph Stalin in regards to Hess's flight and the involvement of British intelligence. The last theory expands on the idea that British intelligence tricked Hess into a flight to England after intercepting Haushofer's letter sent on behalf of Hess to the Duke of Hamilton. Hess himself also claimed to have sent a separate letter, but no concrete evidence exists like the Haushofer letter. It is known that on September 23, 1940, Haushofer's letter to the Duke of Hamilton was intercepted by British intelligence, and its delivery delayed until February 1941, after the Duke of Hamilton had been vetted and cleared of any conspiratorial involvement. British historian Peter Padfield put some weight to this theory that the British had quote-unquote duped Hess in his book Hess, Hitler, and Churchill. Evidence provided by Padfield are the diary entries of a Czech exile who allegedly viewed a report suggesting an English trap, reports of Soviet spies uncovering related evidence, and a 2010 testimony of the son of a Finnish intelligence agent who was working for the British at the time, who claimed to be involved in the plot. Beyond Padfield's claims, even more convincing evidence lies within a 2004 declassified M15 report that reaffirms that Hess's advisor, Albrecht Haushofer, did send a letter to the Duke of Hamilton in 1940, suggesting a neutral meeting spot for secret peace talks. The report then further explains that British intelligence seriously did consider both responding to the letter and setting up a double cross. So, what do you think? Did Rudolf Hess truly fly to Scotland of his own accord, as delusional to reality as public history would like you to believe so? Or is there more to this story? Did he actually make a secret plot with Adolf Hitler for a long-shot attempt at peace with England, to close one front, to open another, knowing the potential ill fate of disavowalment in his failure? Or, better yet, an early testament to British intelligence prowess in its ability to coerce Nazi Deputy Fuhrer Rudolf Hess into one of the greatest traps of the century? And if so, for what reason, other than to deliver a gut shot to Adolf Hitler in his greatest time of need? Lastly, the question that we all ponder: was Peter Fleming's The Flying Visit truly some sort of premonition, or is it a clue to a deeper conspiracy at hand? Hey everyone, that's all for this one. Thank you so much for listening. And, before you go, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and take advantage of that comment section. I'd really like to know what you think. Let's open up that conversation. Let's jump down that rabbit hole. Was Rudolf Hess simply a madman, or is there more to the story? And before you go, be sure to check out the links in the video description and on my YouTube channel. If you're looking for more great stories on government conspiracies and all of history's darkest secrets, be sure to check out my Medium blog site. And if you're looking for more of a fictional nightmare to keep you up at night, be sure to check out both of my books, From a Dark Place and The Promise. They're both available on my author website, which is linked in the description, and on my YouTube channel main page, and on Amazon. So check it out, guys. Thank you once again for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time on Creepy Unsolved.